Welcome to another episode of Life in Focus, where we dive into the world of real estate through real life experiences and insights from our guest. I'm your host, Ben Tate, and today we have a very special episode with the man that wears many hats, Alejandro. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So super excited to see what we can dive into. Obviously, we haven't seen each other since high school, so
10, 11 years.
10, 11 years, and that's enough time to get a lot of stuff done, and obviously, obviously so much has changed. So before we get into it, you want to give the guests and listeners out there, just a quick intro on yourself and what you've been up to, and
bro. Oh, wow. That's like a 10 year. I feel like that context of 10 years kind of makes it a lot of pressure, but no, bro. So, long story short, you knew me back in high school. I had arrived from Colombia, like pretty recently, like right before high school, and so graduated high school and went to USF for a finance degree. I took like 5 or 6 years to finish it because I had to pay for it with my own money.
That's about average now.
Yeah. And but I appreciated it more. Got better grades because I paid for it, Absolutely. But no, finished that. I got married to to Tara Parrish, which you knew her in high school.
Yep,
so
classmate.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Yeah, so super awesome. A huge blessing. There's obviously a bunch of details I'm leaving off there, but married Tara, and then we have 2 beautiful kids now. Wonderful. A boy and a girl.
Beautiful.
They're just like a highlight of life, bro.
Yeah,
and I've done a lot of things since high school, in career wise, and in my spiritual journey, and just in different areas of life. But right now life is just rich, bro.
Yeah,
I have a beautiful wife. My kids are healthy and whole, and I get to spend a lot of time with them, and that's like, I'm rich.
That's all it is. That's sometimes we're spending so much time trying to figure out life, and it's already figured out. It's just right in front of us, and it's tough too, because you want to be successful. You want to lead a motivating life. Yeah. A life worth following, right? Following some of the positive things that you're doing, per se, and you don't have to follow foot for foot with what you're actually doing specifically,
right?
But how you approach the things that you do. Yeah, that's what your kids are going to look at. That's what your peers are going to look at. How does Alejandro approach this, and how does he do this, and how does he respond to this? Yeah, which is very powerful. But it's tough sometimes too to obviously sit back and be grateful for where you're at, because where you're at right now is where you wanted to be yesterday. Yeah. And that's tough, right? Because you don't want to be complacent and comfortable with where you're at without moving forward, right? Yeah. But it's moving forward with some level of gratefulness for where you're at now, and that's always the toughest thing.
It's a weird balance to figure because there are, in many ways, where I'm at right now in life, I look at it and I go, I would have never dreamt this.
Sure.
Yeah. If you asked me 10 years ago, would you be doing what you're doing? Would you be married to who you're married to? Would you have the kids that you have, the friends that you have, just be in the place of life that you're in? I wouldn't have dreamt it like that, right? And there's a really cool verse in the Bible that says that God is able to do way more than we can ask, think, or imagine, right? Sure. And so I'm like a living example of that. Yeah. I don't come from a family unit or from a place that warrants what I have today, and so it's very easy for me to be grateful. Yeah. I feel like I just live there, bro.
Which is good, man. I think that's a quality you don't want to lose, and it's a quality that you want to instill in the people around you. And obviously that's something that we try to live our daily life by. Yeah. So how, I guess to start off with real estate. Yeah. How did you get into real estate? I know you got your license back in 2020. Is that something that you thought you would get into? I know there is some level of crossover with finance, finance and real estate to some degree, but what kind of motivated you to get into real estate? Was it to help with your own personal investments, or kind of what was the pioneer with that? Yeah. So the way I got into real estate was kind of a really interesting back way of getting into real estate. So back in 2016, 2017, I was a worship director at a church. I got hired there, and I worked there for 3 years. I worked until 2020. Okay. Kind of got a little bit tired of that, and I just felt like I needed to make a move in my career. Sure. And then I have a friend, Tim Turpening. A shout out to Tampa Tim. He is an awesome real estate agent and just good friend. And at the time, he worked for a redevelopment company. Okay. So it's just a company that purchases a lot of properties in the Tampa Bay area. They would fix them up and sell them. So that's what you call, a flipper or an investor, right? So they needed people to go out and
like manage their budget purchasing those properties and meeting with the homeowners and negotiating the properties and all that stuff. And so that's how I got into real estate, which was a really interesting way to get into real estate because I encountered a lot of really difficult situations. It was like a really weird time of.
It's also a positive though too, because a lot of people traditionally get into real estate by obviously somebody encouraging them to try it, or they could be good at it, or it could be good for the work-life balance that they think they're going to have with it, right? So they go get their license first, and that's just the theory side of it, right? It's just doing the schoolwork, passing the test. But even once you have that license in your hand, if you said, hey, I want to buy a house from you, I'm like, I don't know where to start, right? Yeah. So for you, it seems like you kind of learned the application either simultaneously with the theory or before the theory even now.
Yeah, dude, it's weird because I got into like the messiest situations real estate wise and just like legal, like I got into probates, which is like learning like tenancy and like how people own properties together and like real estate agents, like families fighting over properties, like all that stuff. So super messy. I got into like the contracts that we would write were super creative, so they were not like your regular real estate contracts. So I think it was like Nextdoor that introduced post occupancy after you closed. We were doing that like way prior in advance. So anytime we would purchase a property, a lot of times people wanted extra time to stay in the house. We were doing escrow holdbacks. As people were staying in the house after closing. So it was like, so I learned the real estate contract like way in depth, way before I ever did retail. Yeah.
No, that's really good because, to learn to do those nuanced transactions, you kind of have to know the bare bones. So you were kind of fast tracked into the bare bones to even know what the nuances could be. So that's super
every
powerful.
Transaction was a nightmare.
Yeah, not ideal.
So like every seller was super flaky and like wanted to back out at some point in the transaction. And you got to think like these are like people, the people that we were buying a lot of the properties from were people that were delaying really important decisions about their real estate for many years.
Too long,
and so by the time they called us, like catching up with all those decisions was already like super tough. And so in throughout that process, they experienced obviously a high level of reluctance to get any sort of like thing done to their house. And so even like being in a contract was like a nightmare for everybody involved because that reluctance has been present and like but it was weird, bro. Like I did it and I'll be honest with you, like I couldn't wait to get out of it. Like I hated that I hated that I wasn't the guy who could say, why don't you stay in your house?
Right.
That's the guy. It wasn't an option because there weren't like the resources and also there were a lot of situations too where like something I learned, we talked about this before the podcast started about value. Doing purchasing homes like that, doing redevelopment taught me that value is not money. Right. Sometimes value is time. Sometimes value is peace. Like
it's what do you value?
What do you value? In not just what's valuable at all times, right? Because if we were hungry right now, a dollar bill would not feed you.
Exactly.
You need relative. A piece of bread, right? So I learned in those negotiations that a lot of times what people needed was time. A lot of times what people needed, like they were not attached to the real estate. That was not the most important thing for them. A lot of times I encountered widows, bro, that were their husbands took care of everything up to that point, and it's a Shark Tank out there
because people are just kind of ready to take your
stuff. So wholesalers, I don't know. I don't know how much you talk on here about like the parties that are out there purchasing these homes, but not that all wholesalers are bad, but we encountered a lot of really
that's I talk about wholesalers here and there in regards to people's opinion on certain things are going to be based largely on their experience.
Right.
So if you have a bad and the thing about wholesalers it's a thing that spoke a lot about on social media. So a lot of people, that's their barrier to entry into real estate. And so my biggest thing with real estate agents in general, where I tell people, because some people get frustrated with, right? And I'm like, listen, if we can all agree that stat that I say all the time, 80% of real estate agents won't be in 3 years because they just, they get kind of filtered out, so to speak. If they're not making transactions, the cost of staying in the game, whatever the case is. So if we can agree that 80% of real estate agents won't be here in 3 years, and we have to agree that at least half of the listings that you see posted right now are probably not accurately listed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or we need to agree that for me, if you lived in this house for 30 years and you sweat and blood and tears to make this thing pretty, you're going to say, hey, this is worth $600,000. I'm not going to get that listing from you if I come in here and just fight you on day one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I might say, listen, I know you believe it's 600. Let's list it at 600. We'll give it a few weeks. If there's no showings, there's no hits, there's no nothing, are you okay with me taking over on where I think I should price it, right? You might get that listing, right? So, but again, there's always a story behind where the thing is listed, and it all goes back into expertise, right? And so right now, when you hire a painter or a plumber or any other profession, in most cases, you assume they're competent to do that job.
Correct.
In real estate, you don't know if I got my license last week or 10 years ago, right?
My team has been here for 10 years, right? That's what they teach you to say, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I've been working with this team. They have X amount of thing. And that's the other thing I say too. I'm like, listen, when you first get your real estate license, that's when you're going to get the most transactions off the least amount of work.
Yes.
So don't join a team. Join a brokerage that's going to give you free education. Keller Williams, Century 21, Remax are going to give you free education to teach you how to write a contract, how to do your first listing appointment, how to do all the day-to-day that you're going to need to learn to be successful. They're going to teach you that for free as long as you show up. You might have to show up 2-3 days a week and go work out of the office, but that's what real estate is. It's not sitting on your couch drinking coffee.
No.
So, but you're going to get the most leads, in my opinion, with the least amount of work. Once those leads burn out, right? It's like when you join an insurance company, like, hey, call everyone on your phone. You're like, all right, I did that.
You burn through the sphere. Yeah.
So then after that, then it's going to be about the word of mouth. How did you treat? And again, you want to use those initial leads as money. You don't want to give away 50% of your commission because you joined a team. And they're just, again, they're going to always take on new agents. And there's so much turnover with that because, again, even if you do join a team after 18 months, you're going to get smart and be like, hey, in 2025, I'm going to do my own thing. And they're like, that's fine. I'm going to just backfill with somebody else that's brand new. Not saying you're not going to get value from working with somebody like that. But they're going to, I don't think it's going to be more value to you than you're giving them. Because you're giving them a 50% commission on somebody that's guaranteed to go with you because they want to support you and the commission to go to you. Which is another issue that I talk about all the time too. Because do you want to make sure Alejandro gets the commission because you want to support him, which is all well and good, or do you want to get the best expertise and advice on that transaction?
That's why I got out of real estate, by the way.
Exactly, and that's why I got out of the day-to-day of real estate as well from a residential perspective.
Because no matter how good you are,
he may not go with you.
If Susie has a nephew that just got a license, she's gonna go with the nephew, and that's crazy because like if you think about any other trade, that wouldn't happen.
You're not gonna hire Joe the plumber because he's your relative. You're gonna hire whoever can give you the best price for the quality.
Who's gonna do a good job?
So
bro.
It's tough because again, the two things that are conflicting there is supporting somebody, which we're all very bullish on. But it's I'm not going to say what's wrong or right, but I can just say it's frustrating when you work so hard to be great.
I don't think it's wrong or right. I think what it is, it's it really undermines the expertise of agents that have been in the business for a long time. And I mean, I have my own opinions about real estate. Like I couldn't wait to get out of real estate fast enough. I'm just being honest with you, bro. Just because it didn't fit my wiring, right? Not because real estate is bad or good. I just couldn't wait to get out. But yeah, it's not that it's bad that people choose somebody that's not an expert. It's that it's very anti-economics, very anti-market, right? And it also, I think it also says a lot about what makes you successful in real estate in the long term. Aside from your expertise, being able to get that client is really if you were an electrician, actually, maybe not say electrician, if you're a landscaper and your neighbors go out and they're like, yo, Ben's grass looks amazing, right? I mean, they're doing the right thing. They're not scalping anything. Expertise is going to leads to get to you. That's rarely ever the case with real estate.
Right. No, because it's so diluted. But there's, glass half full, glass half empty. More importantly, glass refillable, right? So from a positive perspective, I love that about real estate. Because the thing that holds true in real estate, whether it's commercial or residential, is both sides are never equally as knowledgeable, right? Even if you're not practicing real estate every single day, if you went to go buy a property tomorrow, more than 50% chance that you're probably going to be more knowledgeable than the person you're buying it from. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I love about real estate, because it's less about that what we just talked about, that's a frustrating point. There's no getting around that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But I do love the fact that the competition doesn't appear as competition because I know their expertise is capped at a certain degree.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I want to paint it as a bad thing. I just, I wish more people that want to get into real estate knew this.
They knew it,
ahead of time, right? Because if you a lot of what I do for work now, and I know we'll talk about that later, but when I sit with business owners now, one of the things that we try to figure out is strategically, how do you get to your audience? Right? Because in order to be successful, whatever you're doing, you have to get to your audience, right? Even with the podcast, right? Yeah. So, people get into real estate, and I feel like a lot of times people think like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, or, whatever the reason might be, I'm going to go get my real estate license and I'm going to go and try real estate. I wish I could meet with those people and be like, all right, before you do this, let me explain to you like
what to expect.
Yeah. Like
what to expect, the day-to-day, the grind, the hours. I think a lot of times I've always told people to work backwards in certain things, right? So it's like the decisions I make today are largely based on where I want to be in 5 years. That's cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason, I would say.
Heck yeah.
And so, if I want to buy a house, let's just say in 5 years, the things I do between now and the next 4 years are backing into that goal, right? I think that holds true for a lot of things, and it's a good principle or good practice. I don't think it holds true in real estate for why you get into it. Because I think most people get into real estate because they say, oh, you sold $1 million property and you got 30 grand on 3% commission. That's why they got into it.
Yeah.
I don't think that works for most occupations. I don't think you can get into the occupation unless you're just a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? And there's not many people that are like that.
Yeah, we have an epidemic of that.
Yeah, now. Because again, at the end of the day, the money's good until you have a bad day, then you hate that day, right?
Yeah,
because you're doing the thing that you don't really
months,
love.
Like in real estate, right? Exactly. And it's like you get in and you're like, yo, it's been quiet for a few months, Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just something I think a lot of people get into for the money or the lifestyle that's perceived.
Yeah.
And they don't understand the work that comes with it.
Yeah.
And again, I always say, listen, treat your personal life like your business, right? Like if your boss says to do A, B, and C, you're not going to question it. In most cases, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But you won't even be the boss of yourself and write down a list of things you need to get done this weekend, this week, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't be successful balancing your own cash flow financially or balancing your own to-do list personally, you're not going to be great as a business owner.
Yeah.
And so, it's looking in the mirror and it's a tough conversation to have with yourself, but there's certain things. And again, I always say about if you want to leave your job and go, because I do think that use your job as long as you need to get to the next thing,
100%,
to be your own,
always.
to be your own boss or to grow your own thing. So, use earned income for investment income, whether it's investing in your own business. Because again, I think the American dream is starting your own business at some point, or owning real estate. But there's no rush to that. Everyone goes through the same things in life, but it's just at different times. Yeah,
we all start from different places, and as long as you're doing the thing, like
doing the thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So like, and the thing is, like, obviously, if you have a luxury, like for instance, before I could do my own thing, I worked for multiple different companies, but they were still in real estate, right? There was never a rush of when I needed to quit by. It wasn't by a certain age, it wasn't by a certain time. It was like when it's the same thing about retirement. It's not about a certain number in the savings account. It's can I cover my expenses? Right.
Yeah.
And have enough left over so I'm not paycheck to paycheck and covering my expenses. And so I just think it's like thinking about these things more practically. But if we think that we're going to move on from something to work less without a system in place, we're going to have a rude awakening.
Yeah. Or without doing what the system is, right? Because I have to. Yeah, I mean, like if you had to guess, bro, if you had to like prescribe, right? Like, say we had like a person here that was new, and they're like, I want to get my license. We're talking only about retail real estate and residential.
Yeah.
How, if you had to prescribe to them on a weekly basis the percentage of what they should do, what would you tell them?
I would like what like the day-to-day needs to be, or in regards to like what they need to do to be successful from like a
do they like how much training they need to do, how much prospecting they need to do, how much, you know what I mean, like
I would say to be minimally successful in real estate when you first start. Because a lot of times when people first start, they also have a full-time job as well, right? A lot of times it's full-time nurses, or it's a job where it's full-time in nature, but it's also part-time in regards to it's not like a 9 to 5 per se.
Yeah,
it's very tough to balance both of those. Some people do it; they're rock stars, but a lot of times it's like firemen or nurses or people that it's like they have a couple off days, like let's just maximize that type thing, right? Or maybe they don't have children yet, so they have a little bit more time on their weekends and stuff. But I would say to be minimally successful, you can't put less than 25 hours a week into it, and that's just part-time. But I would argue to be successful in anything, you got to dedicate 40 hours a week to it.
But what kind of hours though? So if you had 25 hours and you're
I think it depends what stage you're at, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you had just got my license, I need to be spending half of my week learning the day-to-day of real estate in regards to how to write a contract. And it's not just like, how do I get through the 12 pages of writing the contract?
Yeah.
It's writing contracts. And I would also ask other agents in my office to read their contracts that they're writing, because every contract's going to be different. That's how you can learn. Read the comments at the end of the contract.
Yeah.
What things are they asking for? How are they asking for the concession? Not just saying, can you give me
how? What's the wording?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How are they doing it? What was that buyer's? Again, too, everything is relative, right? So if I get a $3,000 commission, that could be small or large based on how much money I actually had to buy that property, right?
Yeah.
That $3,000 could be deal saving, right? It could just be a cherry on top.
Yeah.
So I think I would ask other people in my office to look at their contracts in regards to mastering writing contracts.
Yeah.
Because then if you know everything about the contract, then because again, you're basically like a lawyer to some degree for your client.
Yeah.
Because you're advocating. That's a lot of responsibility. So I would say I would spend half of my week, if I just got my license last week, I would be spending half of my week mastering contracts. The other half, I would be doing open houses. But I would, again, the quicker you can find a niche in anything in life, you're going to be successful.
Yes.
Real estate's no different. Find your niche, right? Sometimes it could be age related, right? So you can say, listen, I'm going to focus on everyone 25 to 40, right? Because those are people that are going to respect me the most, because our age is not too wide in variance, that they can sniff out my BS and I can sniff out theirs, and we can have a more constructive conversation, right? So I would say figure out what your demographic is going to be from a target market, like we were saying.
Yeah.
But more importantly, from a niche, like in my perspective, I would say have a number of open houses that you want to do. I would say to pick a niche, and there's two ways to look at it. You could say I'm going to go to the curve, meaning that I'm going to try to only do open houses around the median home price, because that's where I'm going to get the most volume. Yeah. But you're also going to deal with people that are the most likely first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers, it's going to take a certain skill.
Or people just kicking tires.
Yeah, right. So it's going to take a certain skill to qualify in and out of an actual potential transaction, and or being able to talk to somebody in a sensitive manner that's never held $300,000 in their bank account before, but the bank's telling them they'll give them $300,000 for this house. It's a tough conversation.
People don't realize that, by the way.
They don't realize it.
No, people don't think. Yeah,
they don't understand. We say we know what a dollar's worth, but a lot of times, if you have limited expertise and experience and other things that help teach you what a dollar's worth. Yeah, we're not talking about $20 in your pocket. We're saying, like, again, a big loan amount that you're going to be on the books for. And so a lot of people don't know what that's worth, and having those conversations is very sensitive in nature, and it can be very exhausting. And again, it can take the fun out of real estate. Yeah. So that's why maybe not trying to niche to the curve. Yeah. But if you're a rock star, you can niche to the curve, because then you're going to get 10 transactions a month if you can find a structure to it. Yeah. But a lot of people find success by doing $1 million listing open houses, because again, you don't have to own the listing to do the open house there, right? So you just do the open house, and then inherently you're rubbing elbows with $1 million buyers. Even if they buy $800,000 or $1 million or 1.2, whatever, now your commissions are in the $20,000 to $30,000 range per transaction. You get 2 or 3.
But you have to ramp up to those buyers, because they will tell your BS if you're new as well.
Exactly. That's why I say the first thing to do is master the contract.
Yeah.
If you master the paperwork, you can get $1 million buyer. All they want to make sure is that they're protected on paper, right? But if you try to master everything else, that's not really relevant to closing the deal without any hiccups. And the second thing is obviously communication, right? Yeah. You need to, in the first week, I would make sure that I had at least one, until I got to about 5 inspectors, until I got to 10 different lenders. I would make sure I had all those things in my pocket. They knew my name, I knew their name, I had their direct line. Yeah. So that when I said, hey, I want you to go get pre-approved, I send you to 5 people. Instead of saying, hey, it's a good idea to talk to 5 people, say, hey, talk to these 5 people, 5 different companies. Yeah. You might have 2 of your own, great, you talk to 7 people, right? Yeah. So like I would have the contacts ready to go, I would master the paperwork. Yeah. And then I would create, because again, going to the $1 million listing, that's me creating the niche. But sometimes when you're trying to create a niche, you still have to take on other ancillary things, right? Yeah. So it's like you're not turning away other buyers, but you're still working towards where you want to be, right? Yeah, for sure. But you can't just blatantly, in my opinion, get into something without an end goal, right? Yeah. People say, oh, I'm trying to save $200 a month, but what are you saving for? Yeah. If we don't know what we're saving for, I ask everyone, what's the biggest thing you want to do in your life that you haven't done yet? And most people say, I want to buy a house, or I want to, it's normally a big payment, sure, or something that costs a lot of money. And I say, okay, well, what price point? how much do you have saved? How much do you need to save? And they can't answer those questions, right?
Yeah.
If you said, hey, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you do? Like, oh, I would quit my job and travel. Where would you travel to? They can list off 2 things. It would take, most people can't within a minute rattle off 10 places they would go visit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I say. Like, we're not doing the work in our personal life, like on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever time you have some time.
You're ministering to me.
Yeah, man. It's like, like if you go through my notepad, I can, like, if you ask me where I wanted to travel, I can pull up my notepad and rattle off 20 places, right?
Yeah.
I've already sat and thought, like, hey, if I can take time to go travel, I'm gonna go to these places,
right?
Right. Or, you know, it's the same thing we do for Christmas lists, right? It's like, oh, my wife or my brother or this wants this. It's like, okay, let me have a list of things that I know I can get them because I'm being present throughout the whole year when I saw the need that they needed. You know, I love to get presents that have utility or need or something like that. You know, but I think it's just being purposeful with what you do. And so I think with real estate, you got to be extra purposeful. Yeah. Because it's so wonderful that you can take it different ways, right? Yeah. You can be in, you know, from a licensure perspective, from your day to day, like you said, fix and flips, or, you know, new construction, or whatever the case is. There's so many different ways to take it. So it's like you got to also figure out what you like to do. You know
but it's hard to know that when you like are new, right? Like I think you and I were talking about iteration earlier and like failing on multiple things and stuff like that. And I feel like real estate is no different. Sure. You know, I'm a big proponent of like taking off on the plane and then building it. Yeah. You know, and
pull the trigger first.
Yeah, bro. You know? Like I mean, I'll be the first one to say like, I BS'd most of the start of my real estate career because you just don't know what you don't know, right? Exactly. So you're talking to people and you're like, and not BSing, but like a lot of times you maybe act like you know with the things that you know are not of liability, and then there are some things that you're like, okay, let me look into that. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Like maybe you don't look as inexperienced as you really, really are. Yeah. But at the beginning, it just, you know, it really just takes like, I really think it just takes getting out there, you know? And one of the things that I found in real estate too, is that the regular, just people in general. Yeah. Well, there's like let's say, I think 3% of people are business owners, which is crazy. It is crazy. That's nuts, right? It makes sense. So that means that 3% of people are more decision-making oriented than 97% of people, right? And so, and obviously that doesn't mean that there aren't decision makers here, but as a business owner, you have to be a decision maker. Yeah, like you have to, like just to get up to work in the morning.
You're solving solutions or creating solutions to that problem for the day.
Or to motivate yourself to just go out and just go fight it, right? And so I didn't love just kind of the wishy-washy decision-making part of real estate. And so I moved, so I did e-commerce, inventory. All my money was sitting on a boat somewhere, bro. I was like, man, that sucked. That was horrible. Yeah, that's not good. I was really bound to Amazon as a platform to sell, and I was paying them ad money as well. And so I was like, okay, too many of my variables are out of my hands. Sure. So I was like, I need to regroup.
Kind of vacuum it back in.
Yeah. So learned a lot, lost a lot, which are the best lessons when you lose, you know? Yeah. So then what I moved on from there was social media marketing, right? And so and this is something that I was doing on the side because I was still doing real estate at this point. So I'm like you said, you know, I'm getting money and I'm like, I knew I needed to get out of, or wanted and needed to get out of real estate. So I was like, okay, let me try with this excess funds to educate myself because I'm a big proponent of just investing in you. Sure. I think, you know, if anybody asked me what's the best investment advice I can give you is learn something, you know, even if you have to pay for it, you know? And so, I'm like, I'm learning and I'm using my resources for this. I'm learning e-commerce. Didn't love it because of those reasons. And then I moved on to start learning these digital skills for social media marketing first. What I didn't like about that is that the clients that I had part-time didn't have quantitative results.
Gotcha.
In a way they were, because you can quantify views and shares and whatever, but you can't tell specifically how your business is growing, how many leads you're getting all the time from social media alone, right? And so I realized that in that process that it was really important for me that my clients would know they were really benefiting from my services.
Quantify the transactions that came from this marketing.
Right. Yeah. So that when we sit down and I give you a report of everything that happened, you have no doubt this is a good service for you. Gotcha. That was really important for me. So I pivoted from social media marketing to start, and again, just run into a lot of different right? I'm like hitting bumpers. And what I really learned, bro, is that, to kind of take it back a little bit, when I used to work for the church, they had us take a strength test, and it was actually super insightful
to figure out like your strengths from a talent perspective.
Yeah, just like what are your affinities and what you like and you're better at, what you're worse at.
That's nice.
And and dude, it was that strength as they invested in. I'm telling you, it has blessed my life.
Really?
Oh my gosh, bro! Like,
so what did it say? Like, what were like the actual results like saying for you on that?
Yeah. So the first one was super. It did not match my current jobs. Sure. Like, you know, at the time I was like, hang on a second.
Like it was, the Zodiac, you're like, wait.
Right. So the first one was strategy.
Yeah.
And I'm a musician. So like, what strategy is there in music? I mean, other than like, what song are you going to play after what song?
Maybe like from a composer standpoint.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I mean, even that is very like kind of creative. Yeah. So strategy was one. Intellection was the second one, which is just like, it has to do with intellect and learning and all that. Connectedness was the third one, which was the ability to connect different points. And kind of make them all work together. And I think empathy was one.
Seems like the how to build an entrepreneur. It's funny.
Right. Like, so I was like, well, I didn't see that when I worked at a church, you know? And
which is it could be entrepreneur in a sense from, you know, not from like the money, because entrepreneur is never really about the money. It's about the process.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That's your fulfillment. Your fulfillment is when you look at a machine and you go,
yeah, in the church you're growing something, because the church are the people, really, not the building. So it's like you're always growing that thing.
But that's still two
different worlds.
Yeah, it's like like you can't touch it, you can't quantify, right? So so anyway, I had to kind of fast forward. So I'm remembering, you know, I'm doing SMMA and I'm like, or social media marketing, and I'm like, this is not a formula. This is not something I can really put an input and then get an output. And then I'm trying to dig into this like whole strategy thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm learning more and more that anytime I met with business owners, we always ended up talking more about their business than about marketing. Right. And so I'm like, this is interesting. And then for what was brewing on the real estate side was that I was having conversations with the guy that was like my team lead, and he was like, bro, you should be a business owner. And I'm like, what? Why? He's like, because you don't like having a boss. You know?
No, it's true.
And he was my boss, you know, and but he was saying it in a nice way, you know, like he's actually like a good mentor of mine. He wouldn't say he's my mentor, but he really mentors me. I learned a lot from him. And so I was like, really, bro, you think I should just like you're telling me to go? Yeah.
It's good that people can give you because sometimes you need that push, other times you don't. You would have done it anyways, but it's good for people that you respect and look at as a mentor to give you that. It gives you, you know, you're taking it more serious when you hear that. You're like, oh, this is like real input.
Yes.
And more importantly, it's funny because I always felt that same way. And I always try to self-audit myself in regards to having that feeling like I don't want to have a boss, because I'm like, what is that reflecting in me?
Yeah.
In regards to, can I not take direction? But I'm like, no, I'm pretty coachable, you know, like anything I don't know what to do, like I'm always like, tell me a way to do it better. Give me some feedback. You know, I always take it professional, not personal with things. And so it's like,
you're coachable for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you want to do your thing.
Because you want to do your thing. Exactly. So it's like, I guess it's all means to an end, you know, but it's, you know, I think it's something important to figure out about yourself, right?
For sure.
Because some people find peace in being being told what to do.
Well, yeah, because you don't have to wonder. You have to come up with it. Right. Yep. And so Prolific Maven, for example, like Prolific Maven is like an ongoing project. Like you ask me, what is Prolific Maven? I'm like,
it's everything.
Nobody told me. Like I'm figuring it out. You know? But what I did figure out at the start, to answer your question about like what Prolific Maven. So I realized strategy was a big thing. I think so. There's this really cool book. It's called The One-Page Marketing Plan, and this guy was describing what marketing is, right? And so he said, and this like really gave me a lot of insight. So he was saying like, you know, let's say that a circus was coming to town. Have you heard this before?
No.
So let's say a circus was coming to town, and you like pay to let people know, like to put posters all around town that the circus is coming to town. That's advertisement.
Sure.
Right? If you then grab a banner and attach it to an elephant and have the elephant walk through town with the banner, that's promotion. If the elephant then steps on the flower bed of the governor, and then they make a news article about that, that's publicity, right? If you meet the governor and you create, a relationship with them and everything is okay afterwards, that's public relations. And then if the people show up to the circus and you walk them through, show them the things that you have and what they have access to and they buy, that's sales. And if you plan the whole process, that's marketing, right? Okay. And that when I read that, I was like, yo, this is what I've been trying to get to. I've been trying to get to a strategy. I've been trying to get to a process, because the other value that I realized I had even in real estate was I always see when something's inefficient. Right. So if something's inefficient, it's like, it irks me, bro. Like, if you ask me what my pet peeve is, it's like inefficiency. Inefficiency, yeah. Yeah, it's like, I know people that are 60, 70 years old who hate how they feel in their work or what their life looks like, and they never had the opportunities that you and I have to figure that out. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do, bro, because to kind of give you like the real heart of Prolific Maven is, so Prolific Maven means prolific is like something that is fruitful and that is like moving forward, right? Like prolific is pro-life, right? So it's multiplying. Maven is expert. And so I picked the name Prolific Maven, even though it's super hard to say and super hard to find, but it identifies with me, and that's the reason why I chose it. It's not good marketing. It's just.
But is it? It like, is if it's on brand.
Yeah, it's right. So it's I'm just mostly just like encouraging myself with it. You know what I mean? That's half of it. Is like that's about 80% of what I need. But Prolific Maven is really a means to make experts more fruitful in what they're doing, right? And so what I saw as I was transitioning from real estate, and I listened to this guy, and he was like, "Yo, bro, go start your own business," which he's now one of my biggest clients, which is awesome, right? And what I realized is I hated to see people who were really honest, hard workers doing a poor job because they weren't being strategic. Sure. So it's like you're out working your tail off. You're like, you're installing that kitchen and you're like chasing those subcontractors and you're like stressed out. You haven't finished your wife's kitchen because you're doing everybody else's kitchen, right? And the reason why that's happening is because you have no strategy, no plan for. And so the two things that Prolific Maven focuses on is connecting 3 points. So I've kind of just this. I guess this is my own business. I don't know, theory. So any business is your audience, your product, and your delivery. Like I think that's just like basic, if you own a business, that's what you're doing. And so what I work on is connecting audience with product, which is marketing, right? And then I connect product with delivery, which is operations. And so at any point, what my business meetings look like is meeting with business owners and looking at where their problem is. Is it on this side? Do you have a marketing issue? Are you having no traffic, right? And are you doing a poor job with that traffic? Or do you have a ton of traffic and are you doing a horrible job at delivering the product? And so that's where we live.
Where we need to work on. Yeah, that makes sense. Just like a mechanic, it's like where's it coming from? Is it the alternator? Is it the?
I see the light. That's it. Yeah.
No, that's important. And I think again, a lot of stuff that we've talked about, it's kind of all vacuumed down to the point of you got to have an end goal. And again, that target can continue to move, right? Like how Matthew McConaughey says, he's like, the guy that I want to be in 10 years is who I'm working towards today, but I'm never going to be that guy in 10 years. Like you're always working towards
Pause for a second there, bro, because you just said something so powerful. You said like, we always get asked, what do we want to do? We never get asked, who do we want to be?
Exactly.
And the reason why I started this company is because I want to be the kind of guy my kids remember spending time with, talking to, right? And I could not accomplish that in the other avenues that I was doing because just logistically time didn't allow it, right? And I constantly encourage business owners too, like who do you want to, like what kind of business owner do you want to be? Like this is not about how do you fix your business, right? Like life is much deeper than that, bro, right? Isn't it? Like you're just like you could do all these things that you really that you really want to do, but then if at the end you are not the person you wanted to be,
what is it for? Well, the thing, two things I would say too is like I always say, like again, everything happens to people at different times, right? And everything's not for everybody, right? So not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, but everyone can be an investor.
Sure.
Right.
100%.
You can work 2 jobs and one job is going straight to investments, or I work harder at one job, or I combine my income with my spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever the case is. And now with our ancillary, our extra disposable income, now we're investing, right? So it's like, you can be an investor or a business owner.
Yeah.
You get to pick which one you want. And sometimes you could be both, right?
Yeah.
But for everyone that gives me an excuse why they can't, there's no excuse why you can't be either, right?
And,
but again,
especially here.
Yeah, especially here, but there's no time limit for it, right? So you may not be an investor till you're 50, that's fine. But the biggest thing to tie into what you said about the kids is a lot of my motivation right now, even not having kids, is if I'm able to have kids, God willing, one day. I never want to be, because I'm always the guy that's motivating my friends to be great or do the best that they can be. The kids will find you out quicker, right? They're going to be like, are you really living the things that you preach?
Yeah.
Right? And more importantly, you just don't want to leave anything on the table. And the thing is, like the 60 and 70-year-old cohort that has, ill feelings about things that they weren't able to do, it's really, in my opinion, resentment, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're looking back and they're seeing younger people be resourceful, even if they have access to more resources than they had. Yeah, they're still being resourceful to some degree, right? It's like there's always a way to be resourceful, because there's plenty of people that are 60 and 70 that are super happy or have had successes or whatever. And I know success does not equate to happiness. And I don't think we should be searching for happiness. I think we should be searching for purpose. And if you fill up your purpose, typically there's gonna be more happier times. But there's I think right now people that are jaded are like, I need to be happy. I want to be happy. I think you should protect your peace, and I think you should perfect your purpose. But I don't think that you should seek happiness. Because seeking happiness, you can get 100%. Happy with things that aren't really filling your cup in the right way.
Yeah, heck yeah, bro. Sometimes things pop up on Instagram that make me really happy. Right. And it's like, that's not what God's called me to pursue. Right. And so I think that, have you read the 80-20 principle book? Yeah. So with everything, like,
but
and it's been a while. Yeah. So I mean, 20% of agents are the ones that really are like doing transactions, and so it goes on and on and on. So I heard this. So in the book, you read this, and this is wild. Or maybe it was somebody else I was talking about it. He said, if you had to guess, 100 years ago, if let's say 20% of people held the wealth, right, over the 80% of people, with all the resources that we have today and everything that is available today, would you expect that to change or to be the same?
You would expect it to change.
Logic would tell you on the surface, right? Is exactly the same, bro.
But you know why that is because, again, we've always lived in a society, in my opinion, of followers.
Most of people
are going to just follow the lead.
Yeah.
Right? We see that with anything. Even if you go to a Bucks game and you go to the bathroom at halftime, there's a line out the men's, is always pet peeve. There's a line outside of the men's bathroom, not because there's a line to go in next, it's because one person just started the line and everyone just got behind him. Not knowing that the etiquette in a football game is you just go start a line behind each urinal. There's like 50 urinals open. But just because the first 5 were taken, a line starts to form. And every single week that I'm there, I'm like,
dude, I would have been the guy starting that line because I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's just a quick example. I haven't
gone through enough games.
Yeah. But like, and again, people, they're not bad people that are getting the line. They're probably thinking they're following the rules, blah, blah, blah. But again, they're just blatantly following, and, I've always said that I think most of the people, I think that's why there's 80-20. I think 80% of people would like to just follow the 20% of the people. They might have complaints, but they're not willing to actually be a leader, right? So that's the difference between being a manager and leader, right? A leader is like showing action, and the manager is like telling you what to do. Maybe they've never even done it before. Yeah. But I think that's with a lot of things.
It's a really good conversation. We won't get into it because this is not a political podcast, but the way that bleeds into politics is really nuts, right? Like, sure. Because I believe, and this is one part that I can say and still stay in the career world, is that it's just so much easier to complain about what's not happening, right? And have you seen that little picture online? Says it's like a super long line, and the sign says people that want things to change, and then the other one is like people that want to change, right? And it's like nobody's in that line,
Nothing's wrong with me, it's you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's society or whatever, right? And it's like one of the things I'm really passionate about, bro, is So you said you're the friend that you're constantly telling your friends to
be the best,
be the best and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so I'm usually the friend telling my friends to quit their job.
Yeah.
Like I'm that friend.
Like call your boss right now.
Probably super irresponsibly too, but the reason why is because I feel like a responsibility we were not. And by we, I mean society. In a society, in the context of society, as males or as human beings. Sure. But let's talk about males for now. We were not taught, for example, that, and this is something that I learned maybe 2-3 years ago, that it's my responsibility to learn how to earn income in a high leverage way.
Less amount of time for the most amount of money.
Because, for example, inflation is not going to stop.
Sure.
So I can either sit and complain about inflation, or I can inflate my own income by using leverage.
Right.
Nobody taught us that.
No. Well, they can't teach everyone that, because the sad part about society is that you need every spoke to the wheel. You know?
Sure.
That's the conversation that...
But I don't think education would change that, because I think some people don't want to go through the risk of...
Yeah.
Like, I wake up, bro, and like, there's no paycheck arriving.
Well, there's a reason why that wouldn't change anything. So it's kind of, we go in the circle, right? Because we're like, we're not teaching this. Even if we did, it wouldn't change anything, right? Which is like the joke behind it. But there wouldn't be motivational speakers if people listened to what they were saying.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. If they actually did it.
Right. There wouldn't be therapists if people actually took all their advice and didn't think that only one of the 10 things they said was accurate.
Wow, man. You're speaking
so, that's why I always tell people, like, there's so many people like Gary Vee and other people that have done cool stuff in marketing or different realms. And I'm like, I respect what they've done. But I've always told my friends, like, don't let me go ever see them do what they do.
Oh yeah.
Because anytime I'm spending 2 hours watching them tell me what I should do, that's 2 hours I'm not doing what I already know.
What you should do. Yeah.
You know what you need to do.
Yeah.
Before you do anything.
Yes.
Even when you go to church and stuff like that, you know what you need to do. You're just being reaffirmed on certain things that you're.
Now sometimes you don't know.
Not
sometimes you don't know.
But many times you do.
Yeah. I'll tell you, for example, I have friends who have had a dream of starting their own business, and they've shared this with me, right? And I genuinely believe that, yes, I think it's funny what you said, like, even if we taught it, wouldn't change anything. I do think it would change things a little bit.
Sure.
And something that I noticed that was, bro, we have lived, people are going to talk about us in like 100 years from now.
We had no phones the first 15 years of our life, and then phones everything.
And then all this development. I mean, we've seen some crazy stuff, and then we experienced COVID as well, which is like our kind of really nuts time in society. But something that was really special that I saw during COVID was that there was kind of like a snap that happened, and people kind of woke up for a brief moment. I feel like people are going back into slumber now, right? Of what life really is about, right? And what things you owe to yourself in life, right? And of course, we can talk about how God's will interjects with that, and how God sometimes asks you to do, if you believe in God, how God asks you to do specific things that maybe are not the most profitable thing to do, but it's the thing that you were maybe put here to do. Yeah,
talking about.
But all things equal, how people owe it to themselves to make the decision they need to make for their life to be as at least as peaceful as it can be, right? And so I know you saw that rush of people, like, quitting their corporate jobs, changing states, like remote work increased a ton because all of a sudden people realized we're not here just to work.
Yeah.
And I think, so talking about high leverage, like something else somebody taught me.
Yeah.
As a father. Nobody taught me.
Yeah.
That you were going to get married. You were going to have kids. There was going to be a higher demand for your time. Therefore, every hour of work you spend has to be worth more money.
Yeah. Sure.
Nobody taught me that, right? If somebody prepared you in high school and said, hey, Ben, you have 10 years, if you decide to have kids in 10 years, to make your hourly rate, which I hate that. I don't believe in hourly rates, but to make your hourly rate from $12 to $150, you got 10 years. Go figure it out.
Yeah.
If somebody would have told me just that.
Yeah. You'd be like, where do I start?
Oh my gosh. Well, at least I would have been like, okay, so what skill do I need?
Again, we back him down again. You had an end goal. That's what all this comes down to. Whether it's teaching it in school, in college, in your life, it's like, figure out and again, that goalpost is always going to change. right?
Yes. Yeah.
So like, to wrap up, I'm going to ask you right now, what impact do you hope to leave on your clients and your community?
Oh gosh, that's such a deep question,
but
bro.
When I ask you that next time you come on, it's going to be a different answer. Not because this answer is not valid now, but because it has to ever be changing, you know? And what would you say?
Wow. Okay. So on my clients and who?
Just your clients, your community, your family, what kind of impact are you working
So I think those are kind of two very different answers, my clients and my community, but of course they are all still together. So let me say this. So I realize now in my 30s, bro, one thing that I value way more than I did in my 20s is long-term relationships. And the market is really beautiful in this sense that when you have a company and people watch you do a good job with integrity for a long period of time, you earn a place in the community. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And I think that if communities were full of let's say, just because we're talking about business owners, but business owners who do a good job with integrity, who are not looking just for their own gain, but they're also looking out for other people in the community who they want to do a good job because they owe it to their clients to do a good job. I think we'd have great communities if that was the case. And so when it comes to my clients, I think what I want to leave behind for my clients is I just always want my clients to know that I always was thinking about their thing more than anybody else other than them.
Yeah.
So like, to give you an example, like I run ads for this like kitchen and bathroom remodeling company, and I build a whole marketing infrastructure so that the lead comes in, they get notified, the lead receives automated communication before the contractor's ever able to reach out to them, so that lead response time is on point. They get entered into pipelines so that visually the contractor can see where their sales, like where the person is in their sales process. And then when the whole process is over with, there's a bunch of automated messaging in between. And then at the end, they also receive a review from this person because we have automated messaging to receive that review for reputation management. So I could technically like deploy that system for a business owner, and whatever they do with a conversion really doesn't pertain to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, you're seeing the leads come in.
Yeah.
But I take a lot of pride in just like encouraging the business owners that are in my portfolio, with my business, to make them better, even though they're not asking me to.
Yeah.
And I just think that
a true advocate.
Just like
cares about it.
Yeah, I love them.
1A, 1B with how they care about it.
Yes, I genuinely love my clients, bro. I know it's a weird thing to say, because the world has made weird, like, things like that weird.
No, I mean, like you said, if your goal is long-term relationships,
yes,
I mean, that's with everyone that you deal with. You want it to be long-term. Obviously, it's a different type of relationship, and as depending on the person and whatever. But I think that all still vacuums down into long-term relationships. I'm advocating on your behalf. I want to see you win. I want to win with you.
Yes,
and I appreciate you giving me the chance to service you and work with you. You know what I'm saying? So I think the business relationships that inherently feel like a partnership, even though it's a service-based relationship to some degree, I think those are powerful.
For sure.
But dude, I appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Yeah, bro.
We can literally probably talk for hours. So I can't wait till the next time you're able to come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can dive into some other cool topics and other common interests that we have. And
I'll tell you real quick before we go, because I feel like you asked me that second one, and I want to make sure that this gets locked. We talked about this, how our kids one day will listen to this. Yeah. And so I'm gonna pretend you're Luca and say like my kids, but for my community, man, I believe that the missing part of the community is the man. And they're not there physically, but emotionally and spiritually, for generations, men have not been present. And I can tell you my story in a different time and how that affected me with my dad and all that stuff. But us in the community, what I really hope to leave behind is I really hope that I can encourage and lift up enough men to have the tools they need to have great marriages, to have a great relationship with their kids, and hopefully one day, and we'll see where this goes, how this ages, right? Yeah. But to also be able to earn income in a way that allows them to do A and B, marriage and kids, in a better way. So we'll see whenever we talk again how that turned out.
I mean, that's why they always say actions speak louder than words. Yeah. And you never know who's watching, whether it's your kids or your neighbors. So, just, again, being purposeful with your actions And as long as you're trying to follow a plan, even if that plan changes every day, you know, people see that. And I think, you know, obviously you can't know the whole book from the cover. We were talking before the podcast, you know, I think the cover is still important, right? So like what you show people is still important, even if it's not the whole story. So no, I think that's powerful, man. And I'm here for it. I'll be along for the ride.
We need a better cover on Instagram for Ben.
Yeah, right.
More than 6 posts.
Yeah, man. I gotta figure that out. But no, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank
man.
you, bro.
And,
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, I take a lot from what you do, and just you know, from afar, obviously, because you know we're both busy and stuff like that. But looking forward to the next time, man.
Yeah, bro.
All right, brother.
Thank you, man.
See ya.